Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ontario Cryptids. I hope you're all doing well, and to my viewers in the United States, happy Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you're enjoying good food, good company, and maybe even a good cryptid story or two. Today, I've got 4 incredible encounter stories lined up for you, and I can't wait to dive in. If you're new here or returning but not yet subscribed, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And don't forget to hype the video to help this small channel climb the leaderboard and get it out to more viewers. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, consider becoming a channel member. You'll get perks like loyalty badges, custom emojis, priority replies, membership-only chats, and weekly member hangouts, and more. And remember, if you have an encounter of your own, we'd love to hear it. Just send your stories to Ontariocryptids@gmail.com. Now sit back and relax, and let's get into today's encounters. I had an encounter last Friday night, November 21st, 2025, while stargazing on the dam ridge above Sugar Pine Reservoir in the Tahoe National Forest. My girlfriend and I were standing at my truck near the hood, which had a gate in front of us and another fence to our right, and it was sitting about 15 yards back from the road. We were out there for about 40 minutes in the dark and mostly silent between my girlfriend and I, if you get my drift. And then, out of nowhere, with no other sign of activity, the sound of heavy running footsteps seemed to be between 20 to 25 feet from us and approaching with a lot of power and force. The movement stopped near the back of my truck bed, and although it was dark and a new moon, the stars had it lit up pretty good out there. But there was no trace of any kind of visual to make out any animal, person, or anything physical in our presence. Whatever this was seemed to have been on us and gone all within 3 seconds max, and left no trace of any kind of escape, change of direction, or any sound of movement at all once it got close to us. There was no noise of approach, no breathing, no grunts, no smell or trace of any kind. Truly baffling. I've ran the possibility of any kind of animal and it just doesn't add up. The only one that I could see being that stealth is a mountain lion, but also I had my dogs in the back seat of the truck and they had no awareness of anything going on at all, and are really keen on animals and any kind of sound when we were out in the woods like that. My girlfriend and I both had a feeling of just needing to let whatever it was pass, and we didn't feel any real sense of dread or immediate danger. It was just incredibly bewildering and left us dumbfounded and with a little adrenaline. So as soon as it seemed to stop, we stayed still for another second and then got into the truck and drove back down through Forest Hill and back to Roseville. I'm still trying to make sense of what happened to us out there. Let me know if you've had any similar encounters like that in this area. I did an illustration, but I want to say I'm not an artist or a writer, so please bear with me. I've kept this secret for a long time, and I figured now's the time to share this story. The year was 2008, and I was 12 at the time, and one of my best friends was living with me. I believe it was in November, and it was around the winter time since it was dark at 6 p.m. Mind you, this takes place in Texas, and I was out skateboarding with my friend, and we were coming down this big concrete road, and it was the entrance of a suburban neighborhood. We would ride down this entrance almost every night. Well, we were skating down this entrance, and I heard this noise, and I listened. I know this is going to sound like a very cliche UFO sighting story, and I get it. But the sound I heard, it sounded like a warping sound, like when I think of plexiglass bending and forcing it back and forth, that warping sound it makes. Anyways, combine that sound with a silencer. I know this sounds weird or crazy, but just bear with me here. I look over to my friend and he yells at the top of his lungs, "It's a UFO!" Of course, I thought he was just messing with me. I mean, we were at that age where we just like to mess around with our friends and all. But I look up to where he was pointing, and there it is. Behind my nearby neighbor's house, a flying disc rising off the ground. Now, I don't want to say exactly where this location was for the sake of that person's privacy. It had this yellow fog dome on top and couldn't really see into well because of the fogginess, but I did see figures. And while this thing is hovering slowly off the ground, I begin to see flashing lights, 2 white and 2 red. But they wouldn't light up at the same time. They take turns, 2 white flashes, then turns off. Then 2 red lights, then turns off. And it continued, and this thing slowly rose up. I grabbed my phone at the time, and again, remember, this is 2008. Cameras on phones sucked ass, and I took a pic. And I kid you not, it was so blurry that I couldn't distinguish what it was. And I ended up deleting the picture. I wish I would have kept it, but regardless, it had this reflective material or force field that when I captured it, it made the photos blurry, as if it was on purpose. Like some sort of force field when capturing photos, it would come out blurry as a blurry mess for the purpose to be camouflaged. I know my camera sucked at the time, but it was right in front of me, hard to mess up the photo. Mind you, it was about 30 yards away. But after I put my phone down, I looked back up and I hear this silent, quick noise, and it was gone as if it just shot up out into outer space in a matter of seconds. What does this all mean? Remember, I was in the middle of the city, houses and city lights everywhere. How was this not on the news? How is it that me and my friends were the only ones that saw this sighting in the middle of a suburban neighborhood? And of course, being a kid, I ran home and told my mom, and of course, she didn't believe me and thought I was just being a punk kid. To this day, at the age of 29, I know what I saw, and of course, I wasn't on drugs or taking any medication or anything that would cause any hallucinations or alter state of mind. And again, 2 people saw this thing at the same time. Thank you for reading my post. In 2019, I was driving rideshare gigs, and I would often come home very late, like 3 or 4 a.m. At the time, I lived in an area that was technically suburban, but still pretty rural. I lived in a neighborhood, but it was on a heavily wooded road that opened up to farmland a couple of miles down. I lived in the southeast USA. So on a random night, I'm driving home around 3-4 a.m., and I entered my neighborhood. The road I turned on is extremely long, and I can see a long ways down. I'm supposed to turn right about halfway down the road to get to my street. Also, I was driving extremely slow because I was in a neighborhood. No one else is driving on the street at this time. I was only on the first road for a few seconds before I started to see something emerge from the yard and put its feet on the road. We had a lot of deer, but this wasn't a deer. It basically looked like a huge black dog. And when I say huge, I mean easily the size of a horse. I was approximately 100 yards away. It had a large head, unlike a deer, and not the same shape as a horse. No antlers, kind of snatched waist similar to a greyhound. The waist was really what made me realize that it wasn't a deer, because most deer are kind of barreled body, but this was a distinct swoop up from the chest to the waist. And while I couldn't see it well, it basically just looked like a horse-sized black dog. It crossed the road and turned right onto my street. My house was about a quarter mile away still, but I was spooked, and the homes and woods between where the dog was and where my house wasn't that big of a distance. I got home and got the hell in the house and told my husband immediately. He said I probably just saw a deer or a big dog. But there's no way I could see a dog that big from as far away as I was. Its entire head and neck was higher than a mailbox. Anyways, this wasn't my scariest experience. I've never seen it again, and I quit driving ride shares when the pandemic hit. But I still think about it a lot. I saw other weird shit driving overnight too, but I think about this one the most. I would like to say that I believe in the existence of Bigfoot. While I was camping at Davis Lake, Washington, northwest of Kettle Falls in Washington State, with my nephew and 3 teen friends, I heard some strange noises while on the throne. It was about 1 a.m. at this high mountain lake when I heard bushes rustling with a deep thump, thump, thump. I estimate the sound to be about 100 yards away. A minute or two later, I heard the same thing at about 50 yards. Now, I was done with my job and I stayed to listen further. I heard the same 3 thumps and some bushes rustling a couple minutes later at probably 25 to 30 yards away. I'm 38 years old and I love tent camping, and I'll admit I was getting pretty scared. I ran down to the camp where my friends heard this too over the sound of a pretty good-sized fire. We hiked in that area during the afternoon the day before, and it was so dense in there that we used fallen logs for sidewalks. The camp was about 25 yards away from the wooden single-throne structure, and we quietly looked and listened but heard no more, and no one wanted to go down the hill with only a flashlight to see what it might be. Do Bigfoot creatures beat their chests? I imitated this sound a couple of days later in Spokane at work for a couple of friends by dropping a 30-pound cement fence pole footer on the moist ground, and it was almost an exact match. The area that we were in, I thought, was too dense for cattle or large deer, and it was after midnight. My sister-in-law told me that her friends were up there one year in their pickup camper and were awakened by the camper rocking. They looked out the small side window and saw a face of an obvious, tall, hairy creature. She stepped back and they could see a juvenile about 50 feet behind her, and they both calmly walked into the woods. That must have been the ultimate rude awakening. Well, thanks for your time. Keep on searching for the truth, and I'm sure they're out there. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. I hope you enjoyed today's encounters as much as I enjoyed sharing them. These encounters never fail to remind us how strange and mysterious our world truly is. If you haven't already, be sure to like, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Hype the video and consider becoming a channel member to unlock all the perks and support the channel in a big way. A huge thank you as always to my amazing members. Your support means everything. And if you had an encounter that you'd like to share, don't forget to email your stories to ontariocryptids@gmail.com. Have a wonderful week ahead. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you next time on another episode of Ontario Cryptids.